How accounts are managed in Stratocast. There are two different ways a client account can be represented in Stratocast. A client account may be the only account in use for a client and contain all the devices and users for multiple locations. This is the most common scenario and is typically used for smaller locations with few devices and users. We can also configure multiple accounts for one client, where each account represents one location or logical division, and the devices and client users for each location are kept separate from each other. We accomplish this by creating multiple accounts using the same client administrator username. In a multi-account client configuration, each separate account is referred to as a site. This makes viewing and editing a client's devices and users easier for both the integrator users and the client administrator. It can also be used to keep client users from viewing cameras in other locations. For example, if we have 3 locations in Montreal, Toronto, and Ottawa, we could create one client account, assign one client administrator, and add all the devices and users to this one account. When viewing the client account's users or devices, it would be harder to view and organize the devices and be able to distinguish which ones are in a specific location. If we wanted to easily be able to determine which NAS volumes or cameras belong to the Montreal location, we could use sites. We would also do this if we wanted to restrict the Montreal client users from viewing the Toronto or Ottawa cameras, but still have one client administrator who would be able to see all the cameras from each site and maintain the user lists. To set this up, we would create 3 client accounts and assign the same client administrator for each. We would then select each account and add the specific devices to it, and set up the users from the account's client interface. The client administrator would then be able to switch to each account to view the cameras from each, and perform any user management needed. A username can be used multiple times in Stratocast for many different purposes. For example, we can have a username that is in use as both an integrator user and a client administrator. When a user with a multi-account username logs in, they will be directed to the last account they had accessed previously. Please note that any email aliases cannot be used if the source email is already registered as a Stratocast username. For example, let's say we have an email address of robert.smith@yourcompany.com registered to an account as a Stratocast username. If Robert has an alias of helpdesk@yourcompany.com set up, he would not be able to use that alias in Stratocast, since the original email address has already been used and activated. We can also use a multi-account username to handle both the integrator's production and demo accounts. In this case, we would use the same email address as the username for the integrator administrator in both. When we're using a multi-account username, only the user information that was originally entered will be considered when assigning the username to other accounts. Any information that is entered in the user creation fields, such as the first name, last name, and language preference, will be ignored and overwritten with the existing information. If the username is assigned to an integrator user or integrator administrator, the user information will have to be changed through the user's preferences from the integrator interface. To change your preferences, click on your username in the taskbar and choose the Preferences option from the drop-down menu. To switch to another account that has been assigned to you, click on your username and select the Switch Accounts option. This option will only be present if the username has been assigned to more than one user account. Click on the play button icon next to the account you wish to switch to, and the page will refresh to the new account. If a client sees a lock icon next to the account they wish to switch to, the account has been suspended and the integrator must lift the suspension before they will have access to it. When creating new users, an activation email will only be sent out the first time a username has been assigned to an account. Anytime the same username is assigned to other accounts, a notification email will be sent, but no activation is required.